Alien Romulus is here. I saw it last night and wanted to talk about it a little bit in a first impressions video. This review will be very light on spoilers, so if you haven't seen it yet, don't worry, I won't be giving too much away, and I'm sure I'll have plenty to talk about with spoilers in future videos. I won't bury the lead, though. I really enjoyed the movie. I can't tell you how great it felt to sit in that dark theater with an audience full of fans and escape into this world of science fiction horror once again. To return to this franchise after 7 years when things were much different. And it's worth meditating on the state of the franchise within that time and what brought us all the way here to Alien Romulus. When Disney bought 20th Century Fox, which then became 20th Century Studios, we had no idea whatsoever if there would even be an interest in continuing with any Alien movies. And if they were, who even knew if they'd tone it down, make it PG-13, or just generally handle it the wrong way? Things looked more promising as more developments came in, and we learned of Fede Alvarez being involved, director of Evil Dead and Don't Breathe. An absolutely perfect successor to the Alien throne, and keeping in with the decades-long tradition of each film being made through the vision of a new, talented director. Beginning with Ridley Scott and seeing the likes of James Cameron, David Fincher, and Jean-Pierre Jeunet bringing their unique perspectives to new Alien stories. So that was very exciting, and still it's also worth taking a moment out to appreciate that they were originally going to release this directly to streaming. But they had faith that this was worth the theatrical experience, so here we are now. Not that direct-to-streaming devalues the movie itself, like with Daniel Trachtenberg's Prey. You can get a fantastic movie. It's just that it doesn't feel like the big event that it should feel like. And bless them, they made Alien Romulus into an event. The marketing was great. The hype around it was so exciting. And finally seeing it was the culmination of this big event. In the theater, with the big screen, the big sound, the audience gasping, laughing at certain moments, and edge-of-your-seat silence you can feel with the tense moments. I'm grateful for that shared experience. And it was kind of fun to look around before the movie started to see who was wearing an alien shirt or maybe a Nostromo cap to commemorate the occasion. It certainly feels like a movie that was tailor-made for the fans. I was actually really surprised at how they went into some certain elements and mentioned certain terminologies that up until now you would only have found in some of the extended media. So that brought a huge grin to my face. And whether you may be the big kind of fan who knows all that kind of stuff, or more of a casual fan, it delivers on all the expectations one would want of an Alien movie. By now, at this point in the franchise, there are inclusions that just have to be there. You want to see different life cycle stages of the creature, the facehugger, the chestburster, the full-grown Giger design, all included, all utilized very effectively. We also expect to see the spaceships, and in particular, the ominous corridors, of which this movie has plenty. And we've also come to expect an important element in these movies being artificial intelligence, some kind of android character. Which is so funny considering there was no such thing included in Dan O'Bannon's original script that started it all, and he reportedly didn't like the idea of including Ash in the original film, but now it's a staple of the series and feels like an essential piece of any Alien story. Alien Romulus delivers greatly on that. David Johnson plays the android Andy and joins the ranks of great and intriguing AIs within the series. He was a highlight for me, but maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. Another thing we expect is the underlying antagonist within this world, arguably more of a threat than the alien itself, the Company, Weyland-Yutani. Its evil grip can be felt all throughout Alien Romulus. We see that as the story begins on the Company-owned colony of Jackson's Star. This is a mining colony where the lives of its workers can be quite bleak, and the sun literally never shines. Rain Carradine, played by Kaylee Spaney, grew up there and has now lost her family. All but for Andy, her brother, an older android model that was found on a scrap heap by her father and programmed to look after her. They're all each other has, really, and their relationship is the core to the movie. Rain wants to leave this place once and for all and start a new life on the planet of Vega, a supposed paradise, at least by comparison, which she recurringly dreams of. But we come to realize the inhabitants may not be so much employees as they are, in essence, prisoners. Contractual quotas are constantly being increased. The carrot is continually dangled in front of their workers, and Rain is told she can expect another 5 years of work before she can apply again for relocation. I've seen criticisms leading up to the movie, and I'm sure I'll keep seeing them now that it has been released, about the age of the cast in Alien Romulus. Some people believe they're too young, which I always felt was a strange complaint in general, but I think age does play an important part in this story. Being so young, the characters on this colony have already seen the lives of their parents come and go. They know exactly what's in store for them for the rest of their lives if they don't get off Jackson's star. There's an urgency to that which I think is very specific to that age. It's a relatable thing. A lot of people in their early 20s can take a look at their path in life, see what's ahead of them with a lot more clarity than someone who's older and already living that life may have, and begin to panic. Jackson's star, I suspect, has plenty of stories around its inhabitants who may have felt that at some point but acquiesced and accepted their fate. The older they would get, the more normal it would feel. So Rain's attempt to escape all of this is a defiant act, against the company and its rigged system, and against a life that passed her parents by that she refuses to live herself. What instigates the escape from Jackson's star is a message from some old friends. They've spotted something interesting just outside the planet's orbit. A decommissioned space station, Renaissance, that has about 36 hours of life left on it before it's destroyed completely. What is of interest inside the station is its still-functioning cryopods. While these characters have the means to leave Jackson's star, it doesn't do them much good for the 9-year trip to Vega. These cryotubes are their only hope for passage to a new life, and they need Rain, more specifically they need her android brother, to access this station. So that's what they're after. That's why the journey into unexpected horror begins. It's a small, close-knit group. We have Rain and Andy, we have Archie Renault as Tyler, Isabella Merced as Kay, Spike Fern as Bjorn, and Aileen Wu as Navarro. I think these movies ultimately work better with smaller groups of characters. A lesson to be learned from the original 1979 film. 7 characters, all distinct, all great actors. James Cameron made it work with a larger cast, but honing in on a specific group of survivors in the second half of the film. Alien 3, of course, made the pretty big misstep of its huge cast, almost indistinguishable to most audiences of bald prisoners, and no one could really invest in them. Even with the more recent films, Prometheus and Covenant, the casts were just larger, maybe feeling more like disposable fodder than real tangible characters. We all know John Hurt as Kane from the first film and the shock of the chestburster scene. But could you name off the top of your head the character whose back splits open and gives birth to the Neomorph in Alien Covenant? Probably not. But, just for the record, it was Ledward, played by Benjamin Rigby. I think scaling the cast down was a good and important move. We get to know the key players pretty quickly, and we pick up on some key things about them. It's not overbearing with the exposition, but we get a sense of their histories. We clue in on the idea that there was some kind of relationship between Rain and Tyler, and that it may have just not worked out, but a friendship remained between Rain and Tyler's sister, Kay. Possibly Kay and Bjorn may have been involved with each other at some point, but it appears now Bjorn is with Navarro. I think there is a specific reason why those 3 are involved in an integral scene together, and for those who have seen the movie, I suspect he's just some asshole. Though calling him an asshole may be a bit uncharitable, but he is pretty mean to Andy. Andy is nothing but a nice, supportive, artificial person, mostly, and he doesn't deserve that kind of treatment. Although we do learn from Bjorn's past exactly why he harbors such an animosity towards him. Twist my arm, force me to name my favorite character, it's definitely Andy. Johnson does a great job presenting different levels to this character and evokes the necessary changes that he goes through as the movie progresses. He's just generally an interesting character. As mentioned, he is an older model, in fact even older than the Ash model we saw in Alien, which takes place 20 years earlier. One of the first Weyland-Yutani synth models designed specifically for work in mines. Maybe you can read into that in some kind of way, maybe not. And maybe you can read into this android not being top of the line, having, let's say, glitches, and interpreting it as an allegory for a disability, and the sibling/caretaker relationship with him and Rain. However you wish to see it, I think it is a moving relationship. I think Kaylee Spaney and David Johnson play off each other extremely well, and they heighten each other's performances. Both are great. There is an important moment later on in the film where Rain has to make an important decision related to Andy, and I think the relationship is established well enough that we fully understand why she makes the decision she makes. I think it's well earned. With good characterization at its base, when the horror finally reveals itself, I think it makes it all the more satisfying. It should be noted that the movie is paced very well. It takes its time before we finally do see the full-grown adult alien appear, and when it does, it's very impressive. Each movie in the series has its own take on the Giger design, and this one definitely leans more into the 1979 Big Chap, but with its own unique characteristics. We get to see the classic alien back on the big screen, and it is a glorious sight to see. It's as terrifying and beautiful and enigmatic as it was when it was first unleashed onto audiences all those decades ago. The special effects are great, and we have the best of the best contributing to bringing the alien creatures to life. I was surprised to see just how much practical effects were utilized, and there were portions where I wasn't quite sure if I was looking at something practical or something created using CGI. I think Alien Romulus can stand as a shining example of exactly just how well including both practical and CGI effects can work. The last time around, I was disappointed with Alien Covenant, and how even though there were clearly intentions to include at least some practical and suit effects for the alien, those seem to be scrapped in favor of 100% CGI. Admittedly, some of the CGI shots are incredible in that film, but others I felt were lacking. But here, it is the best of both worlds, and most importantly, it's not overdone. We still get only glimpses here and there, quick looks at the creature, with our minds filling in the rest. It's a pretty bold move, considering the alien has been just so overexposed throughout the years, and we all know what it is and what it looks like, but it pays off, composing a frightening and seductive rendition of the classic movie monster. That's something hard to do so many movies in, hard to keep it interesting, hard to add new things that may have eluded audiences in past entries, and there's a little more here included that hasn't been done before. There's new elements to the facehugger creatures as well, a characteristic that's new and makes for a pretty good scene where characters are trying to avoid them. That was one of my favorite parts, and a pretty tense scene. I think in general the facehuggers really shine in this movie. We've never seen them play such a huge role as they do here, and I love that because they really are scary as hell and perhaps were underutilized in the past. And I have to give a shout out to the sound design of the film, and would urge anyone to see this movie at the theater with the best sound possible. I swear there were moments where I could hear the noises of the facehuggers and feel like one was crawling right behind me. It was great. And really, just all of the technical aspects are fantastic. The effects, the sound, the set design, the beautiful cinematography by Dariusz Wolski. It's a great looking film. The musical score by Benjamin Wallfish is really effective, hitting these big passages reminiscent of 2001 and others reminiscent of the intense sirens of Alvarez's Evil Dead. And most importantly, the wisdom of knowing when to let the silence do the work and let the scene play out without any musical accompaniment. That can really serve the tension, and there are definitely tense moments. One of my biggest hopes for a new Alien movie was to have something truly scary again. In fairness, nothing's going to be as scary as being a kid and watching Alien and Aliens for the first time and having the shit scared out of you. That's pretty much a given. But the thing is, even when I've watched those movies hundreds of times over, the craft is just so precise and so well done that it still has the ability to create that tension over and over again. Romulus brings back the more horror-centered atmosphere to the series, and I love that, though it probably would go without saying it still doesn't match those first two movies, but few movies can anyway. I was drawn in, I felt tense, had some good jumps that I thought were well earned, and it had some decent gore for the gorehound in me. Although it was a little bit restrained in that respect. If you're expecting something with blood running down all the walls like Evil Dead, then just know it's not that kind of movie. It delivers to be sure, but it doesn't go over the top. Personally, I wouldn't have minded a little bit more gore, but that's probably just me. Well, as I mentioned before, this serves up just about everything a fan could be expecting from an Alien movie. I think at the same time, the movie plays completely fine for a general audience. If someone walks into the movie never having seen a single Alien movie prior, I think it still works completely on its own and explains itself well enough that they'll get it. So purely as a science fiction horror film, it's very well done. I wouldn't say the movie is completely without faults. I definitely came out of it with some criticisms. Some, I guess I can talk about generally, others maybe for another day with a more spoiler-filled video. Some of a more nitpicky nature, some maybe more offensive, some not necessarily the fault of the movie itself on its own terms and just what I would have preferred. For example, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of the environment on Jackson's star. Maybe a little bit more of the people there, a little bit more of Rain and Andy's life there, and more to really drive home the desire to leave. I fully understand, though, why they wouldn't want to linger around too much and get to the main part of the story in the Renaissance Station as quickly as possible as they justifiably could. But that brings up something else that disappoints me, and how unfortunately they haven't, and appear to have no plans to, release a novelization of the film. That's been a grand tradition of the Alien movies, rarely broken, and I'm quite sad we won't get one for Romulus. The Alien novelizations were things of legend, and so wonderfully worked as companion pieces to the films. Since the medium is so different, there would be some room to linger a little bit, and maybe explore the colony more. Another thing I would have liked to know more about was what exactly happened on the Renaissance Station. We only really get a brief idea of what went down, and the rest of it left to our imaginations. Although we don't have a novelization, I think I should point out that sometime in the future, apparently we will be getting a comic book prequel for Romulus. I imagine that will likely be filling gaps that I'm so curious about, at least when it comes to the Renaissance Station. While I don't think the movie goes overboard on the fan service, it does flirt dangerously close with doing so. One of my pet peeves when it comes to sequels is when well-known lines are repeated and repurposed. Alien Romulus is unfortunately guilty of this in a few instances, actually. Neither time was I charmed by it or felt it was necessary in the slightest. I don't like it. I think this madness should stop. Funnily enough, I didn't have much of a problem when Prometheus and Alien Covenant repurposed lines, but maybe that's because the lines were a little bit more obscure. You could watch Alien Covenant, hear Danny McBride repeat Yaphet Kotto's Walk in the Park line from Alien and not even really make the connection just because it's not an especially memorable line, and probably only recognizable if you're intimately aware of Alien's dialogue. Romulus repeats very, very memorable lines, very explicitly, and it just got groans from me. Anything else, and I think I'll get too much into spoiler territory, but already I'm sensing that the ending of the movie is going to be very divisive, to say the least. I'll say that I liked what they did with the ending, conceptually, but it mainly came down to the particulars of its execution that I had some problems with. For what it's worth, the ending sequence has one of my favorite shots of the entire movie, so I won't say it's a complete miss, not at all. But it probably could have been handled better, maybe just a little bit differently, I don't know. This may take some time to mull over. I will be seeing the movie again very soon, so maybe it will play out better now that I know where everything is going. Overall, in the grand scheme of things, I really have to state my love and affection for Prometheus and Alien Covenant, and lament that we didn't get a proper conclusion to that story. I know there are lots of very vocal people who absolutely hate those movies, and I'm sure I'll get comments, as I usually do, that my entire opinion will be thrown out of the window just for viewing them in a positive light, but they are more than worthy, in my opinion. They are ambitious movies that took the series into different and fascinating directions. They still maintained familiar traits, but had different ideas and explored new concepts, maybe not perfectly, but in a way I thought was endearing. In a way that gave the entire world of Alien a different scope and carried larger overall consequences with them. Alien Romulus has the familiar elements, and plenty of them, and aside from the finale, ensures it doesn't veer too far off from what worked so well about the first two movies. So it should be a more than suitable alternative for those who hated Prometheus and Covenant, but be warned, they are not erased from continuity. There is at least some tiny bit of acknowledgement, working as a compromise between keeping what preceded it and starting anew. In many ways, this is the quintessential Alien movie. It has everything. It works extremely well. It's crafted wonderfully. It's just that it doesn't carry those same consequences any longer. A large part of me misses that from the Ridley Scott prequels. It fits very nicely between Alien and Aliens as its own story, a complete one that doesn't feel episodic or dependent on the need for a follow-up, though I think one could work. Characters enter a haunted house of horrors, and it's very effective and top of the line with its production value. Great actors, well-done characters. Not much wrong with that. Not bad by any means, but it is as straightforward as that. So maybe, just at this point in time, this is exactly the Alien movie we need. Something to get the series back on track tonally. Something to prove the xenomorph can still be scary, which it is, and present a standalone story. But I do crave for something a little bit more bold. Let's see these things get to Earth. Let's see what their homeworld looks like. Something different. and this could be the necessary stepping stone to something like that. But it is unfair to fault the movie for something it's not and was never trying to be. Would I recommend the movie? Absolutely. Did it satisfy what I wanted as a huge Alien fan? It sure did. This is a more than worthy entry into the series. I think Fede Alvarez has now put his own unique stamp as a talent behind the camera and was a champion for all of us who love these movies so dearly. And he has brought another one into the series to enjoy for years to come. As far as I'm concerned, the series is his as long as he wants it, whether he wants to make another one, or to stay on in the creative process in one way or another, guiding other talents to bring in their own visions. But I think the mark he left is crucial. He is now a crucial voice in this franchise's direction, whatever direction that may be. It could go anywhere after this, and that's an exciting thing. A big, genuine thank you to Alvarez for bringing us this movie. A big thank you to whoever it may have been at the studio who said, fuck it, let's release it theatrically. And thank you for watching. Alien is back. I'm enjoying every moment of it. I'll see you at the movies. And until next time, this is Alien Theory, signing off.